Hello, I'm Neil Quigley and welcome to the latest episode of my Blogcast. Hope you're well and you've had a good couple of weeks. My girlfriend does enter lots of those Sky VIP competitions. She has won a few things over the years. A couple of weeks ago, she actually won 2 tickets to go and see the play Dangerous Liaisons at the National Theatre on the South Bank in London. Now, somehow, even though I'm a massive fan of theatre, I had never actually been to the National Theatre to see something. I'm not exactly sure how that happened. However, thankfully and happily, she did decide to invite me along. So we went there a few Fridays ago, picked up the tickets as it told us to do on the email. Very impressed. We got 2 tickets, and when they were handed over, the face value on each ticket was £120. Needless to say, they were very good seats in the stalls, and we had a great view of the action. Now, as ever with these things, this was made into a film that I actually never got round to seeing. Linda did tell me the cast that were in the film, and I must say, the cast list of the film was spectacular. I'm sure it was very good. And also, in case you're wondering, no, I never read the book that it was based on either. Although I'm always quite happy to go into any play or musical not knowing the story or very little about it. I actually find I enjoy it more when I don't really know what's going to happen. This production starred Aidan Turner and Leslie Manville, and at the same time we picked up our tickets, we also found out they had given us a drinks voucher each, so we got a free glass of house wine at the bar. I don't think it was just because we got free tickets and also were given a small amount of free alcohol. I really did enjoy this show. It was fantastically staged, brilliantly acted, and they told the story in a way where you were in no doubt exactly what was going on, but it was all done in a very tasteful and above board way. In fact, bearing in mind Aidan Turner used to play Poldark and always seemed to have his top off in that, I was quite surprised that in this production he kept his shirt on at all times. If you've read the book or seen the film yourself, you will know the story. It is a tale of deception and low morals that ultimately catches up with most of the protagonists. I don't think I'm giving too much away. The actual play is called Dangerous Liaisons. We had a fantastic night at the National Theatre seeing that play. I would definitely go back and see something there again. Thought it was a fantastic venue. Acoustics were great, as you would expect for something relatively new compared to some of the theatres in London's West End. I don't think there's actually a bad view anywhere in the theatre from what I could see from looking around, and the bars and the location make it a good place to visit. If you've heard this podcast before, you will know it's a bit of a constant battle between my girlfriend and I when it comes to eating out. Because of my celiac disease, I have to be quite careful where I can eat. I am on a very strict gluten-free diet. Even the smallest amount of gluten can make me very ill. Therefore, I can't really eat everywhere. Happily though, we found a new restaurant not far from where she lives where they can safely feed me. It was suggested by her Pilates teacher, so we actually went for a meal there with her and her husband. She is also gluten-free, although not a celiac, and had been there before, and they managed to look after her. I did my research, looked at their menu, and emailed them in advance, and they assured me they would be able to feed me safely. Handily for us, the other couple offered to drive as it was a Saturday and we were celebrating that fact. It just so happened that Linda had a bottle of Prosecco in her fridge, so we thought it would be rude not to have a glass of that each before we headed off to dinner. The restaurant was called Le Bank and it's in Abbots Langley. It's very well decorated. The staff were very welcoming and friendly. Nice ambience and soundtrack to the place, which are two things I always look for, and they were very attentive and very good with me. The menu is labelled, but even so, as a celiac, I need to check how anything labelled gluten-free is actually cooked. You'll be amazed the amount of places who will, for example, cook gluten-free things in the same oil that they cook the gluten-containing items in, which is absolutely no good for me. So that is something I need to check. I always like it when either, if they're not sure about something, they'll go and speak to the chef directly, or they'll just call a manager over and someone more senior so they can find out the information that I need to know. Both of those things happened. I selected something on the menu that was perfectly safe, and I must say it was fantastic. Mushrooms for starter and sea bass for the main course. Absolutely brilliant. The portions they served you in there were very generous as well. I knew this because when it came to the end of the meal, I was too full for dessert, which is very unusual. They did have very nice red wine in there as well, and at the end of the meal, a bit old school and something I don't remember happening since probably I'd been to a Chinese or possibly Indian or even, come to think of it, Italian restaurant. They did come over and give us a quick tequila shot at the end of the meal on the house, which was a nice end to proceedings. I would definitely go and eat there again. Food was fantastic. I was perfectly fine after eating there and I really enjoyed it. So hopefully we'll definitely go back. And Linda is happy as we now have another place outside of the normal ones we visit to go to occasionally in the local area. Last October, we finally got round to taking advantage of something Linda was given for Christmas, a voucher for a tour and tasting at the Chiltern Valley Vineyard in Hambledon near Henley-on-Thames. We had a fantastic time doing that. While we were there that time, they were offering vouchers to do the tour again. Now, our thinking on taking that up was we went in October last year and we just missed the harvest, so all of the grapevines were quite empty. So in our heads we thought this year with the tour we've got, which is a bit cheaper, we will go towards the end of the summer and then we'll see the grapes in all their glory on the vines. It'll be fantastic. And then once again we completely forgot about it till about a month ago when I eventually started looking on their website to try and book something. We wanted something at the weekend, ideally on a Saturday, but it would seem that they book up quite far in advance on Saturdays, and also as well the place is used as a wedding venue, so I guess when they've got an event on a Saturday, quite obviously they don't do a tour, which would limit the availability on a Saturday, of course. As I was looking at the website, we realised they had 2 spaces on a Saturday tour the following weekend. We couldn't find any other weekend dates. Obviously, we wanted to use our voucher. We didn't have anything booked in for that weekend. So basically, we got straight on the website and booked ourselves the final 2 places on the tour and tasted. Also, when we went there that very first time, we noticed they had B&B rooms on site. We tried to book them, but unfortunately they weren't available. This time, however, they had 1 room available, which we managed to book. So not only were we going to do the tour and taste it again, we would actually be staying on site. We were both really looking forward to it, and as we'd booked it so close to the actual day, we only had a week to wait. It all worked out really nicely on the day. You could check in to the B&B rooms anytime from 2:30 in the afternoon, and we'd booked ourselves on the 3 p.m. tour. So therefore, we turned up dead on 2:30, got ourselves into our lovely room. Basically, they have an old Tudor farmhouse there, which they've turned into the different B&B rooms on site. Also has a lounge that anybody can use and a universal dining area as well, where you have your breakfast. No complaints about the room. It was great, and we actually had a view over the orchard, which was quite handy because it was billed as the orchard view room. Because it's in Hambledon, which is pretty much in the middle of nowhere, and you discover this when you're on the very small roads on the way there. It was so quiet and peaceful. We didn't have too much time to dwell in the room, of course, so once we'd had a quick look round and dropped our bags, we made sure we went back to get ourselves in position so we were there when they called us to start the tour. We did have time, however, to buy a couple of glasses of some of the Chiltern Valley wine, the Chili Cat wine as it's called, and that was really nice. It's so named because the family cat is called Chili, and they wanted to pay tribute to it in the only way they knew how, by naming a wine after it. The tour once again was really interesting. They take you through the full process of how they make the wine, from the vines to where they store it, and they explain how they turn grape juice into different variants of wine. They also make real ale on site as well, so they took us through that, and they took us into their bottling plant as well, which seems quite an amazing operation. It is run on a relatively skeleton staff, and they all work together on all of the different jobs. Really is a massive piece of teamwork. One thing we did find out was that the owner who bought it back in the 80s when it was a pig farm and didn't fancy basically being a pig farmer much, so turned it into a vineyard and decided to make wine every year, and he's done this ever since he's owned it. He and his family come down and harvest the grapes all together in one day, and basically now it's turned into a bit of a pizza and beer and wine party. Something Linda and I quite fancy trying to get ourselves invited on next year. Sounds fun. You could be involved in picking the grapes that make some great wine, plus it sounds like a party day in the sunshine. Then of course we moved on to one of the most enjoyable parts of the tour and tasting, the tasting part. I did flag once again that I was celiac, and they looked after me brilliantly well. They supplied snacks which were toasted corn which is fine for me, not a problem with the allergen, so I could have that in amongst the tasting. Obviously I couldn't taste the real ale, but they did give me an extra glass of wine while everyone was sampling the ale, and that was all fine. As it turned out, we also got to sample some different wines from the ones we tried last time, which was good. They make mostly white wine. They tend to do maybe one red and some rosé, and they also do some sparkling wine as well. Plus they make the ales, and they make some very nice liqueurs as well. Got to try a few of them. They are really nice. Now the tour and tasting finished like any good tour and tasting should, in the shop where we purchased some wine to take back to our room for the evening. And also, because it was such a gorgeous sunny evening, we actually got another glass of wine so we could sit outside in the courtyard and just have a drink in the sunshine. That was great. As part of the package we got with the vineyard itself, they organised some transport for us to go to and from the local pub, the Stag and Huntsman, which just happened to be where Linda and I stayed last time that we did the tour. So I already knew they could look after me food-wise. The taxi picked us and two other couples up at about 6:30, took us to the pub where, of course, they were expecting us and had tables booked. We had a fantastic three-course meal there with a few more glasses of wine and fizz. Then at 9 p.m, the taxi returned us to our B&B, and we just spent the rest of the evening enjoying the wine we'd bought there whilst looking out over the orchard where basically that wine came from. I know we have done the tour and tasted twice already, and we're probably not going to learn anything new, but it's such a great experience. Who can say we won't actually give it a go again? Right from the moment it was announced, my girlfriend really wanted to see the Cynthia Erivo one-woman show of Dracula that is on in the West End. Unfortunately, tickets for it were very hard to come by when it first came out, and if you could get hold of them, they were very, very expensive. I tried to sort that out for her birthday, but didn't quite manage it. However, we managed to find some tickets on a bit of a deal for last Friday and snapped them up straight away. They were really good seats as well on the end of row H in the stalls. Now, once again, I'm familiar with the story of Dracula to a degree, having though never actually read any of the books or actually seen any of the films. So I may have been missing some of the nuances of the actual story. I did do a little bit of research before we went. The one thing I always like to know before I go to a play is the total running time. And bearing in mind, this is a one-woman show, I was quite surprised to see the total running time was 1 hour 50 minutes with no interval. So basically, she was just going to go straight through from start to finish. She must have such amazing stamina. She is like an Olympic athlete. We took our seats ahead of the performance, very excited, but not knowing exactly what to expect. Cynthia walks out on stage and lies on the floor, and then it all really begins. The whole thing is so clever. It involves her on stage the entire time, playing many, many different parts. Also, there is a video screen on stage projecting the entire time you are there. Sometimes it features shots from live cameras of Cynthia on stage. Other times it features some pre-recorded parts with, again, her playing other characters. Sometimes she is in conversation and in the same scene as what you see on the video screen. It is amazing how it is all put together. It's a breakneck speed as well. It's not performed slowly. I don't know how she memorized the dialogue for it. Not only that, she has to switch between all the different accents of all the characters, and there's so many costume changes as well. She, as I said, never leaves the stage, so her costume and makeup have to come to her, and she transforms sometimes while she is acting on stage, changing characters as the transformation takes place. The story is brilliantly told. I learnt the nuances about the Dracula story that I wasn't quite aware of, and saw how it all pieced together and fully understood it. It was one of the most astonishing and remarkable things I think I've ever seen at a theatre. She was amazing and thoroughly deserved the 3 standing ovations she got at the end. No one should have to work that hard for other people's entertainment. How she has been doing that for so long, day in, day out, I'm not really sure she deserves to put her feet up and have a really long rest when this run finishes. We all know she has a fantastic voice. Right near the end, she does do a little bit of singing, and that voice live is more amazing than when you hear it on the radio or see it on film. It was a fantastic show. So glad that I got to see it in the end, and even more pleased that Linda saw it because she thoroughly enjoyed it as well. I'm not sure if I'm getting more mellow in my old age or just realising that life is a lot about compromise, but I seem to be slowly watching more and more films. Last Saturday we decided to have a day in. I, of course, never saw the original version of The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Why would I? It was a film out at a time when I was probably just playing football all day and all night. They've made a new version of it. It's Stephen King, and I do like some of his films, not all of them. I like the intriguing storytelling ones, not really the big horror ones. Horror, not really my thing. Anyway, I was persuaded to watch it, and a good guide for a film for me is I didn't get bored during it, and I thought it went quite quickly. There's some really clever and funny bits in it. It's quite far-fetched, I suppose, in parts, but then again, if you think of the links with the current day and reality and some of the things that are happening in this so-called dystopian future, worryingly, there are more parallels with it than I would necessarily like to admit. There are obviously lots of great action shots in it, but there was actually quite a bit of comedy and humour as well, and a few little nice twists and turns. I'm not sure how true it was to the original, but Linda had seen both, and she said that this version she thought was actually better in the way it was produced. Maybe it had a bit more money thrown at it by the sounds of it. That's just about it for this episode. Thanks for listening. Look after yourselves and each other. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.